Man, I miss the days where all of the games in one franchise could come out all in one console era. And as time goes on, we do away with these type of video games. The fun era of the double jump. Simple, yet so fun at the same time. Things just turn edgy now. With all this being said, I know it's crazy of me to say, I don't think Jak and Daxter needs a reboot. Man, I've been wanting to do this video for a minute. This was one of my favorite video games growing up. Can we take a trip down memory lane? This all started when Curious Jack wanted to be naughty and go to Forbidden Misty Island. He got scared and pushed his best friend Daxter into a pool of dark eco, which turned Daxter into an oxel.
I think we're in trouble! Man, that stung!
So basically, throughout this entire game, they go collecting power cells as they continue their journey to the north to try and find a cure for Daxter, to turn him back into a human. And there were so many things that I loved about this game. And it's also so funny because they did relay real world problems or like problems into the game. Like they had like politics. And I used to love when they used to grab the power cells because they would do this like little dance. I remember there being like a fish mission, which was like super fun. The little flying thing, which you had to go over the lava and it used to like overheat and you had to like pop the balloons. And then every game back then had those like weird like slide like levels where you had to like collect the collectibles in the game. And you know, for this game it was the power cells. But throughout the game they found out that this guy named Gull was basically trying to take control of the dark eco to rule the world. And at the end they were able to take him down, but they weren't positive that they were successful in it. So when that game was over, then came Jak II. And yes, you heard me correctly, it's called Jak II, not Jak and Daxter. And that's one of the first things that irritated me. Why'd they get rid of Daxter? To me, Daxter was like one of the best things about the game. I mean, he's still in the game, but they just removed him from the title. And that's when things started to turn a bit edgy, to say the least. And we start off the game with the sage telling Jak to go find himself. And we have no idea what that means. And I'm sorry, why does Jak have a booty nose? But we see that Jak, goes to this new place called Haven City, he gets captured, and he's held there for 2 years. And he separates from Daxter during that whole process, which we will come back to later. But now in this new game, all of a sudden he could talk.
I've been looking for you for 2 years! Say something! Just this once!
I'm gonna kill Praxis!
Damn!
Basically, the premise of this game is to figure out why Jak all of a sudden has these newfound powers and why is he now here in this city. But in this game, all of a sudden he could talk, he has some real authority. But one thing a lot of people didn't know is they thought that Jak was mute, but that wasn't the case at all. There was plenty of times where Jak was trying to talk, but he just kept getting interrupted in the first game. But in the second game, he's like, I'm basically just gonna say whatever I want to say and y'all not gonna do nothing about it. Because in this second game, he was pissed. They still have that precursor eating thing in the second game, which is basically like the old wise man in the game, teaching Jak new things like new combat mechanics or just like fighting techniques, stuff like that. In this game, they introduced racing, which would become a really big theme in this game. They had so many innuendos.
If you think you've got the guts to race in this town, try taking my prototype jet board out on the stadium course. Beat the stadium challenge and maybe I'll consider you for my team.
They had a freaking strip club. But they do end up finding their old crew, I guess you could say, and it turns out that like one of them, Samos, was brainwashed. They also find this little kid that looks just like Jak, and they find out that he's actually the key to taking down this big bad guy. And they want to send him in this big labyrinth to take him down, but he's just a little kid, so he can't do that. So Jak and Daxter volunteers to go in the place of him. And throughout this whole thing, they have to take down this big bad spider. This whole thing plays out, the bad guy dies. And one thing that I did not like about Jak II is the story is so confusing. And if I was confused playing it at my big age, I know a little kid who this was kind of meant for would be confused as well. But basically, this younger kid is like a younger version of Jak that has been placed in the future. And to be honest, if I was going to sit here and try and explain it to you, you would probably be confused too. So I highly suggest that you either play the game or try and figure it out yourself, because It's a lot. They basically replace this dark energy within Jak and replace it with like this lighter energy. And they send the kid Jak back in time with Samos to be raised properly. Now we're going to skip forward just a little bit because this is how the story plays out chronologically and not necessarily in the order that they released it. We're going to a spin-off they made called Daxter, and this was probably my second favorite game in the series. After Daxter gets separated from Jak, he actually goes off to be an exterminator. And in the game, you can play against some big bugs, take them down. You actually go into like hotels and like sewers and stuff like that. And the gameplay was really fun. In this game, Daxter is basically trying to get back to Jak within that 2-year time period of Jak being basically locked up and kidnapped by these people. And as you can see from the second game, he ends up doing it.
Whoa! Gnarly! Excellent work, dude!
That's right. Heroes always find a way to get it done, no matter what the hardship.
There was also this mini game where Daxter was playing as like this ninja and you had to like push the buttons like really quick before they like got to you. It was so fun. But to me, this is such an iconic game and you must try it if you haven't already. At the start of Jak III, I'm like, why does bro keep getting locked up? But this time Daxter actually joins him because he can't stand another second without him. And they actually have like this bird colleague. But him and Daxter was beefing pretty much the whole game.
That way!
That way!
Oh, and I suppose you know where you're going, huh?
Better than you do, Bent Beak.
Let's just move.
The metalheads were taking over and there has been a battle for the city, Haven City. So they banished Jak for causing it. They think his friendship with this guy named Crew helped the metalheads get into the city. And since he was saved from this desert, his life now belongs to the people of Sparkus. And they call him the Animal Man. Dangerous, but he could be useful. And in this game, the precursor orbs are actually showing up less and less. They're becoming more rare. There's also a person that's trying to protect the precursor orbs. They are still collecting the precursor orbs, but they don't do the dance anymore. And that's like the saddest thing to me because that was my favorite thing in the first game. And they did do it in the last game, but they didn't do it nearly as much. So to not see it at all in this game was just like a tear running down my face. They also threw in some more racing. Half the game was probably racing. They put a huge emphasis on cars. Cars in this game is probably the most advanced that you saw in the whole series so far. The map was much larger, which is cool, I guess, but half of it was like desert, so I don't know if it counts. Jak now has the power to use his light to slow things and people down. But it was just something about Jak III that made me realize that this game has lost its charm. They made the characters like so flat. I also remember that there was this mini game that was like Pac-Man, but like Daxter's head as Pac-Man.
No!
And I'm like, things couldn't get more random than this. Like, what is this? And Jak like randomly gets wings throughout the game. You get to play as a robot. We find out Deimos is Jak's dad. And then the guy becomes a precursor and we find out like precursors are actually like Otzels, which really helps Daxter get his like full closure because now he just feels like he's like this god and stuff. So I guess that's good that he got like some kind of closure because the last couple games they were like not even caring about turning him back. And at the end of the game, Jak and Daxter almost splits up, but then Jak doesn't want to go. So, and I'm just thinking about the series of events that happened from the first game to this point we're at now and how just different it is and how far that it has went away from its roots. And it's like I couldn't tell if they were like getting lazy or something because they used the Haven City map for 3 games now at this point. They must really like that map. And also Jak has made so many like character switches, it's almost like they didn't know where to go with his character, so they just tried everything in the book.
We're always up for a little rumble. Hey, Dax?
Fish in a barrel, baby. Fish in a barrel.
Then the last 2 games is basically where it's like, why did they even put this out? They came out with Jak X. The whole game gets poisoned by this guy named Crew, even though he was already dead. I guess this is something that he just like planned in advance. And they have to win races to secure an antidote. And like I said, it seemed like Jak has changed so much from the first game, but Daxter stays the same throughout the whole series. Then there was The Last Frontier, which shouldn't have came out period point blank because it's like a completely different game than the rest of the whole series. It's almost like they just used the name Jak and Daxter or Jak to get buys. Quality was just completely off and it really just like contradicted the whole trilogy that came before it. And all of the other characters just basically disappeared besides like Jak and Daxter and Kira, but Kira did not look the same at all, so I just don't know what that was. As much as I would like a reboot that would bring me as much joy as the first game did, I don't think that'll ever happen. And I really don't think that there should be one. It will never live up to the first game. Maybe we can get a remaster though, that'd be fun. And don't get me wrong, I really did like the trilogy for the most part. The last two, no. But the trilogy, I really did like. I did have some complaints about it, but I would still replay them at any time. But I felt as the games continued on, it just got worse and worse. What do you guys think about Jak and Daxter getting a remaster? How did you guys feel about all of the games? And if you played them, which one was your favorite? Let me know down in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Pause for now, play forever. AK out.